Fox Valley today. I'm your host, Ann Vickery. Joining me this morning on my far right, Carlo Colosimo from the law firm of Colosimo, Ewing & Smith. And to my near right is Andrew Nickel of the law offices of Andrew Nickel in Yorkville. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you both for coming. I know I've known Carlo for many years, and Andrew is somebody I just met this morning, but I'm glad to have you both over here this morning. We're going to talk this morning about a situation that, you know, whether you're a parent or a grandparent, maybe you're a kid home from school, I don't know. But something that I think is relative to all of us, because if we have families here in the county, we've probably got grandchildren, nieces and nephews, neighbor kids that we think the world and all of. And Carlo and Andrew are members of the Kendall County Juvenile Justice Council here in Kendall County, who've been in operation since, what did you tell me, 2010?
2010 is when it officially formed, yes.
Okay. Maybe you could explain the background of the Juvenile Justice Council and what it's supposed to do.
All right, yes, the Juvenile Justice Council was created as a vehicle to raise funds and awareness for children in the community, specifically high school students, just to really keep the juveniles out of the juvenile justice system. The committee's comprised of members of the judiciary, the state's attorney's office, the public defender's office, private attorneys like Carlo and myself, as well as there's a representative from one of every high school in the community and other members of the school and law enforcement community.
So a well-rounded group of people who every day are dealing with juvenile problems that come through. I mean, it could be anywhere from the junior higher that maybe stepped out of line a little bit right up on through somebody 18, 19. When do people fall out of the juvenile? I mean, how old do you have to be before you're considered an adult? I've never, is it 17, 18, which is it?
It's 18.
It's 18? Weren't they at one time they were thinking about lowering that age, weren't they?
Well, it was at 17 where some offenses, if you were 17 or older, would be charged as an adult, but they've since changed that. So really, if you're 17 or younger, you'll fall in the juvenile justice system.
Okay. So you guys together work and provide and help provide resources so that some of these organizations can function and reach out to these kids. Carlo, you guys have something coming up over at Hoover, don't you, to start this whole thing?
We do. April, I believe it's the 27th?
21st.
April 21st.
April 21st. Brenda's going to kill me for getting the date
Oh,
wrong.
that's okay. Well,
April 21st, we have our 5K run, which is really our one big fundraising event per year. And this one event, in essence, funds our entire program for the entire year.
really?
It does. We are not funded by taxpayer money. It is all through private donations. We are a 501(c) organization. So this is really our one time a year where we reach out to the community, have a fun event, and ask for donations to run this program for the year.
And did I hear if they use the word WSPY, they get a 25% discount on this whole thing?
They do for the next 7 days. If when they register online, if they put in the code WSPY, they'll get 25%
Well, we'll make
off.
sure that we get that on when we talk to the folks on the radio too, because, you know, I don't think most people are going to take advantage of that. But
I
it's
hope so.
always
I hope
nice.
they do.
But but you know what? If you're going to go do something and you want to donate, write the check. You know,
Right.
I mean, $7 going to kill you? Not, probably not. And if it does, maybe you better rethink the whole thing anyway. But that's good. How many runners or walkers you usually have for that?
It's been going up every year, and well into the hundreds, a few hundred
You're
actually.
kidding.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Last year we had about 250 somewhere in there, and the weather was actually pretty bad too. But
Yes.
last year, so yeah, we have a good number of runners.
And obviously, you probably have people who donate even more, just because they think it's a really good cause.
We do. We do.
Yeah.
We have
So
private donations.
how much money have you raised? What's the biggest number you've ever had?
Well, like I said, I think we were close to 250 last year. I don't actually know the exact figure, but I mean it's $35 per person
Yeah, well,
for
so
adults.
you're talking $12,000.
Oh, but then we also have the sponsors. We have
Right,
sponsorships at, I believe, 750, 500, 200, 250, and 100 level. So we have a lot of sponsors that, you know, local businesses and organizations that donate just either prizes or cash donations.
Right, right, and you can do gift cards or things like that with it. I think that's a great idea. I didn't really, you know, I think I've heard about that before, but I guess I didn't realize you really had that kind of a turnout. But, you know, you get all your attorneys and staff and judges, some of those that are still old enough to run.
Yes. Well, we've actually had the course, Courtney Transier is a part of the committee who's put a lot of work into this and gotten it officially measured. And
Now, who is Courtney? Tell us who is that.
She works in the public defender's office. She's
Okay.
been with the public defender's office
She
for
works
a
for
very long time.
Vicki Chufo?
She does, yes.
Okay.
And like I said, there's lots of different people who are members of the committee, but the fundraising committee in specific that puts on the 5K that Carlo and I are also a part of. But Courtney is the one who has gotten everything measured off and officially timed.
Okay.
So people who
So
you know,
it's a certified course.
yes.
Right.
So
If you need the times for bigger events as a runner, this event would qualify.
And does Judge Pilmer usually come in the first 5?
no, Judge Voiland always puts on a good showing. I can't remember.
Oh,
Judge Pilmer was there last year.
I'm not going to start ranking judges in their
Yeah.
ability to run. I have to appear before them. So
yeah, I guess that's.
Maybe I spoke too soon.
I guess that would be true. Well, that sounds like a great idea. You guys really take this money then and you turn it out and turn it over to some of these organizations that then are working with these kids every day. So let's talk about those organizations that you give the money to.
Sure, there are 6 organizations that the JJC actively funds. I don't want to forget anyone, so I have them all written down. But
Okay.
The Kendall County Operation Snowball is countywide. At the different high schools, we have Newark has the TALK program, which is an acronym for Teens Activating the Language of Kindness. Yorkville has TRY, which is an acronym for Teens Reaching Youth. Oswego High School has a program called Bionic, which stands for Believe It or Not, I Care. Oswego East High School has a TALK program, and Plano does not quite have a program yet, but we're working on getting a TALK program there.
Now, when we talk about a talk program, it can be talking to them about drugs, bullying, alcohol, internet safety, pornography. Do you guys help them set up an agenda on of some of the things they really need to hit?
Really, they're all mostly independently. They're their own programs that are run through the schools and the student leaders there, as well as the faculty and things at the school. But we provide them the funding so that they can do these sorts of things. We provide speakers who can come to their events and speak. We've had people from Homeland Security to come and talk about internet safety. Attorneys and police officers have come to speak with the programs about underage drinking and drug use and the risks involved in that, not only to yourself, but also to your health, rather, but to
Right.
you in the legal community, in legal situation, if you get in trouble and get arrested, and what consequences that can have.
You know, Carlo, I was going to ask you, and you may or may not want to take a position on this, but we talk about drugs, and you know, when I was growing up, marijuana was a thing. That was about as far as it got. I mean, I'm sure there were people shooting up with stuff somewhere out there, but I never knew anything. But I mean, if you drank a little beer, you smoked a little pot, that was what you did in the 60s. We have a governor we have a potential governor candidate who is all in favor of legalizing marijuana. How do you feel about that?
You know, that's a tough one because I can see the advantages and disadvantages of it. Obviously, of the recreational drugs, marijuana would be on the low end of the scale.
Right.
In reality, knowing the state of Illinois for how it is, the state of Illinois' only goal in legalizing marijuana, in my opinion, would be taxation.
That's right.
That it's a revenue resource, and if Illinois can find a way to generate revenue, I assume it's going to come out of Springfield.
Yeah.
Frankly, as fast as it comes in, they're going to spend it. We all know that. But to me, the state of Illinois' desire to legalize marijuana has nothing to do with the legalization of marijuana, but they see it as the next big revenue source.
Right, and I get that, but Do you, I mean, it's certainly, when you take what they call, a recreation, that people can refer to as a recreational drug, is that also going to, could that also alleviate some of the number of court cases that are out there? I mean,
Well, sure, they've in essence, on small amounts of marijuana have decriminalized it at this point. It's more
Right.
of an ordinance violation at this
Right.
point than a criminal offense, which has alleviated some of the caseload in the misdemeanor courts. Because before it was a straight criminal case, they had to be prosecuted by the state's attorney and dealt with at the courthouse. Now many municipalities are dealing with it. I'm the hearing officer in Oswego and Plano, so now I see those tickets come before me on an administrative
Right.
level. And it's really just a small fine, and there's absolutely no effect on their criminal record
right.
at this
And
point.
how much is what they so-called legalized limit that you can have?
I believe it's 10 grams.
Yeah, I
10
believe under
grams?
10 grams, it's
Under
a
10
civil
grams.
offense,
Yeah, and-
maximum $200 fine.
And that's not very much. Is it?
I honestly, I don't know how much 10 grams
Yeah,
of
we
marijuana is.
should get a little scale. I'll get that scale out at home and put a little flour or something on it and figure it out. How do you feel about it, Andrew?
I think that the legalization of marijuana is probably going to be a really good thing. It's something that can be taxed and regulated, who has access to it. Once you create a market for it, then the black market shrinks up.
Shrinks up.
And I think that also helps with other drug problems because although people have tried to classify cannabis as a gateway drug, I think if you're going and buying it from the same guy who sells the heroin and the
That's
harder
right.
drugs.
If he can move you up, or he can put something into that marijuana to up your high that makes you want more of something, I agree with that part of it. That's probably my point all along. Now, just for a suggestion, if you guys all got together and you said, we'll support this to your legislators, but 50% of all that taxation should go into a lockbox to fight back drugs, opiates, and help our social system, you might have something going on there, and that's where I would start. I would beat the hell out of those legislators until they lock back some of that money down. So anyway, my opinion counts for nothing, but we can always start there. Okay, now, after you guys are doing all these fundraisers and stuff, and you're giving it to these groups, then you're not spending all that money on these programs, but you have other things that you give this money towards. What is that?
That's correct. We every year award 2 scholarships to graduating seniors. One of them is one of the student representatives that are on the Juvenile Justice Committee.
Okay.
And the other one is another senior from high school. And there's an application process. We have a committee that reviews those to
All right.
decide who is going to be awarded the scholarships. We also provide grants for truancy programs at the schools so that they have more resources to go out and reach out and help the kids that are perhaps having trouble at home, whatever reason, aren't coming to school, and get them to school and figure out what the issue is and try to
Okay.
resolve it.
One of those things when you talk about schools, it keeps coming back to me. Do you feel like this bullying whole thing, is this calming down? Are kids becoming more aware? Are you seeing less of it, or is it just something that continues that you just have to keep hammering these kids at? How about you, Carlo? What do you think?
I think it's something that still continues, and it's still a serious problem.
Yeah.
I think that people are finally starting to realize the seriousness and some of the results we get from bullying. But I think we have a long way to go before we eradicate bullying from our schools.
This is only kind of a cross-section of a conversation, but if you've ever watched a herd of horses,
Sure.
7 or 8 horses in a herd, there's a pecking order of how horses eat and how they will continue to run one horse out, 2 horses out of the herd until they've finished eating and what's ever left. And it's kind of funny when you watch animals. It's the same thing.
That happens in our schools' cafeterias
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah,
It does. Yeah.
and describe to me how that works.
Well, I mean,
They'll
there's
just push some kid to the back of the line. They'll take his food off his tray. What will they do?
no. I mean, sometimes it could just be ignoring and isolating a child.
Right.
Everybody has their friends. Everybody has their cliques. And unfortunately, you have the 1 or 2 students who might be a little different, or think a little different, or dress a little different, or look a little different, and just that small difference basically puts them in exile in their own school.
Right.
You know, we have to really get it through to these kids that, you know, everybody is different. And I think people are learning that. Not everybody's going to fit into a certain mold that
Mold.
you think is the ideal student. And as a community, I think we really need to reinforce that with our children, that we really need to reach out to these children. You know, they had the walkout the other day for the protest, and many parents and many people online were saying you should have a walk up. You should start walking up to the individuals who you see are bullied or picked on or isolated, and welcome them into your friend group, welcome them into your table to eat lunch, things like that. And I think that would go a long way, and that's something we really need to keep stressing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Let me ask you, did we have Kendall County schools that walked out in honor of or in distress of that Florida shooting?
I'm from Yorkville. I know Yorkville did. They
yeah.
had an organized walkout. I know Oswego had some organized
Right.
events. So yeah.
And you know what? The only people that are ever going to change this world are those kids. People like me, it's too late. People like you, it's too late. You aren't going to change it, but these kids can. So I have a lot of faith in what these kids can accomplish if they stick to their, I hate to use it, their guns. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what the Juvenile Justice Council is all about, is about providing the resources and the education to these children, so as they get older,
Right.
hopefully it can snowball
Right.
in a positive
To
way.
make them, yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier, the Operation Snowball. You know, I always thought snowball meant drugs, but you guys use it in terms of, explain that.
Well, I mean, when you have a child and you set them down a course, you can either set them down a positive course or a negative course. And that's really, in my idea, where a snowball comes in. Once you set a child down a course, they begin to gain speed and traction and grow down that course. So our goal is to set the children down the positive course, not the negative course,
Right.
where they're going to end up before the courts and with us in the juvenile justice system.
And with these programs that you're sponsoring, not only are these programs that are being sponsored by you guys give these kids a chance to talk, but it also can send them out to, if they need to talk to an adult or to a police officer or to somebody that can really give them some guidance or some help. Those resources are available too.
They are, and it really is amazing how one person or one organization or one student reaching out to another student, how in essence it can change that student's life forever.
Forever, yeah.
And you don't know. You just
Right.
don't know until later. So it's very important that you just keep a positive message and reaching out to these students
Right.
and providing the resources they need.
I don't think one of us, any three of us in this room right now, would probably be remiss if we said, we remember somebody who treated us real bad. But we also remember a couple of those people who really made us feel really good about ourselves, helped us through that difficult time. And it's still so important today for these kids. And so anyway, we got to take a little bit of a break. We'll be right back with Carlo and Andrew in the Juvenile Justice Council, and we'll be right here to talk a little bit more about this. We'll be right back.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to Fox Valley. Today I'm your host, Ann Vickery, joined by Andrew Colosimo and Andrew Nickel, both attorneys in our local area of Yorkville, also members of the Kendall County Juvenile Justice Council. In the intermission we've talked a lot about their programs and what they can do and how they've reached out to high schools and youth groups throughout the county. But I think it's important because these are the guys that every day are in the courtrooms representing families and young people who've maybe gotten down the wrong track, so to speak. And I'd like to ask each of you individually, what do you think is the biggest issue in our community today? Is it gangs, drugs, alcohol, pornography? We'll start with you, Carlo.
Well, I think drugs are a growing epidemic in our community that sometimes people don't realize just how serious the problem has gotten. Like I've stated before, we live in a nice, great community in Kendall County where you have your average American family. When you look at them from the outside, everything seems to be going well.
Right.
And everybody has the perfect life. But we all know the reality is that that's not true. You see individuals in court every day with some very serious charges and some very serious drugs that are in our community and unfortunately in our schools. And I think that's something that we try to focus on with the JJC, not just the bullying and the cyberbullying and the internet, but also the drugs and alcohol that need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. You know, in your career, and you've been a practicing attorney for what, 20 years?
Yeah.
What do you think is the toughest thing you've ever had to face when it's come to a young person?
Well, to me, I used to be a prosecutor and then worked in juvenile court a long time as the abuse and neglect court. When you see the abuse and neglect cases against the children, which those children who are abused and neglected are often the ones who then go out and bully, use drugs,
Commit crimes,
because they don't have the resources or the support in the home. So unfortunately for those kids, they have a negative impact in both directions. One from the parents who are abusing and neglecting them, but then two from the system because they've committed criminal acts and now have to pay some sort of price and appear before the court and go through that process. So when we talked about snowballing before, abuse and neglect, unfortunately, is a catalyst to snowball an individual in the wrong course. Mm-hmm. It's very sad. Some of the cases that I've seen in abuse and neglect court, if I told people about it, they would literally think I was making them up.
Right. And that's hard to believe that we have that going on in our own county.
And we do.
Then we do, yeah.
And we do.
And obviously, you know, children are protected through their ages and their names and families, but yeah, I don't think there's anything sicker than to find a parent abusing your child. That's so.
I agree.
Andrew, what about you? What do you think is the leading real issue that our parents and our young people need to deal with right now?
Well, I think the drugs and alcohol is a big thing, but I think that sort of the broader overreaching problem that needs to be addressed is social media and the internet. I think that that encompasses really a lot of the other problems like peer pressure, bullying, all the things that are having impact on kids. I mean, kids talk about on social media drugs and alcohol and seems to, in a sense, can glamorize these sorts of things. So having parents understanding social media, and that's part of the problem, is this generation was raised with it, and our generation that came in, some of us even after college, and times when we weren't really interested into it as much, and we just didn't grow up with it. So now we have this whole generation that's so much of what they know, that they communicate that way. They can use means and methods that the parents don't know about. I remember there was something in the news about this calculator application that parents, or the children rather, could download, and there's a code that you entered, and you could store photos and videos, but it just looked like a regular calculator application. So getting parents educated and knowing what to look for and how to monitor the different social media and other internet things that the kids are using, I think is a really big issue.
When we talk about social media and we talk about kids sexting, what about people who may have taken a picture of somebody in a compromising situation which was not as bad, but then posted it out there and used it against somebody to make them look bad? Is that a crime? Is that, what is that? How do people use, I mean, that's just something that I've wondered about.
Well, it can be used, I mean, a lot of different ways. I think that in the context that seems to be a problem with the younger people is they can be charged with child pornography, even if
Right.
you were underage. If someone underage and you have their pictures or videos or something on your phone, and that's a really serious felony. Whether or not they get charged, I mean, it happens. Kids get charged, and
Actually can be, I mean, if you're 17 or 18 and you put something like that out there on somebody, you can be charged as a sexual predator or child pornography, as you say, child pornography,
Well, that's
right?
that's what the kids don't realize. Even if they're not adults, even if you have a 15-year-old sending a nude picture to a 15-year-old, and the 15-year-old who receives it and has it on their phone and shows their friends, if they get charged with possession of that child pornography, they're going to be a registered sex offender.
So what do you do if somebody sends your kid that, and your kid is like 14 or 15 and they don't get the whole consequences of it? How do you protect a kid against that?
Well, I would advise people to immediately delete it and then report the individual who sent it, hopefully to their parents, to
Right.
realize this is going on. And I understand it's a very difficult thing to do with your peer group, but I don't think the children realize the consequences
of
and the
this.
seriousness. If you are required to register as a sex offender, you can say goodbye to jobs, opportunities,
Colleges.
scholarships,
Right.
grants.
You're done.
It's devastating on an individual, and I understand individuals make mistakes, but there's mistakes and there's life-changing mistakes. And we're getting to the point where we see more and more people in the courts making life-changing mistakes as
Right.
juveniles.
And even if you're juvenile and you're charged in the juvenile justice system where people won't have access to those records, the sex offender registration requirement carries past. It can be lifetime, it can be 10 years depending on the offense, but
Right.
that's something that even though it happened as a juvenile, that's not something you can hide.
Yeah, and I think there again is one of those things where, again, kids, you as you say, you start talking to these kids at a young age as to what this really all means. But I would hate to tell you that I got some pictures one day which were not meant for me. I'm going to tell you, they weren't of children, they were of an adult, and I simply was shocked, and I mean, I deleted them. I just didn't even know what to say. I never told anybody about it, but I know it wasn't meant for me, because why would they send something like that to me at my age? But I just think, I think you're right, though, that social media thing and how fast things can travel and how frightening it all can be. But I've really enjoyed having you guys on today. There's a lot more to talk about. Thank you for coming over. We're going to go over on WSPY 107.1 and talk a little bit more about it. If you can join us, we'd love to have you. We'll see you at 107.1 in just a couple of minutes. Thanks again. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you, Andrew. If you need some advice, go see these guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Ann.